Hello and welcome to Deakin's Virtual Open Day 2022. I am Genevieve. I am first and foremost an occupational therapist. I am an associate professor and I am the discipline lead of occupational therapy here at Deakin. I'm thrilled to see so many people here today and people who are interested in exploring a little bit more the world of occupational therapy with me. We will be hosting a live Q&A session right after this presentation, and you will have the possibility to ask questions and we'll do our best to answer all the questions that you might have. You can start typing your questions on the right-hand side of your screen, and these questions will be responded by our experts and during the live Q&A session. Before we start, I would like to do an acknowledgement of country. As we gather for this meeting, physically dispersed and virtually constructed, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we do our business today. Deakin would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which our university campuses are based. The Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, on whose country our Geelong campuses are located, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, on whose country our Burwood campus is located, and the Pik-Wurrung people of the Ma Nation, on whose country our Wonbul campus is located. I myself, I'm located on Wurundjeri country, and on behalf of us all, I pay our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander traditional custodians, elders and ancestors of all the lands from which you may be joining our gathering today. I express our gratitude for their care of country, which continues to sustain us as it has done for millennia. Education has a long and rich heritage on this continent, which we aim to honour and reflect in the ways we teach and learn. So what we will be doing today is talk about occupational therapy, obviously. We'll start by talking about occupational therapy and talk about what occupation is and what it means. What do occupational therapists do, where we work, who we work with, and where we work. Then after that, I'll take you through the course structure of our Bachelor Pass stream and our Bachelor Honours of Occupational Therapy. And then I'll give you the 7 reasons why you really need to study occupational therapy at Deakin. So what is occupational therapy? Well, to understand occupational therapy, we have to understand occupation and what occupation is. So in the head of an occupational therapist, occupation is far more than jobs or employment. For us, occupation is absolutely every single thing that makes up a human's life. And most importantly, occupation makes up what is meaningful to the person. So it's every single thing that we do in our day that has meaning for us and that is important for us. Let's try something to better understand occupation and how meaningful occupation is important for occupational therapists and for the people that we work with. So I'm going to ask you to think really hard about 2 things that are really important to you. And I say things, but I should probably say occupation or activities or things that you feel are very, very important to you. Just 2 of them. These things could be spending time with family and friends. It could be playing a musical instrument. It could be doing sports and exercises. It could be anything. Think about 2 that are very, very, very important to you. Now that you have those 2 things in mind, how do you think it would feel if I said to you, from now onwards, you would no longer be able to do these things? They're very important to you, but you're not going to be able to do those things. How would that feel? This is pretty much the situation or the circumstances in which the clients, the people that we work with as occupational therapists find themselves. They are no longer able to engage and participate in these very important and meaningful things or occupations or activities. And what we do as occupational therapists is find ways collaboratively with our clients to make sure that they can re-engage and do these things that are so important and that give meaning to their life again. How do we do all of that? And what do occupational therapists do? Well, we work holistically. So we consider the person as a whole, and we consider the person in the environment that they live in. So it is important for us to fully understand how our body works, how we move, how everything works for us from a physical perspective. It's really important for us to understand that. To that understanding, we add all the emotional and the mental health and the emotions that we go through in our daily life. We need to understand that as well. So we have the physical health, how our body functions, we have mental health, emotions and feelings, and then we also need to understand from a cognitive perspective how our brain works, how it gives messages to our body, and how all of that interacts together. And on top of that, we do what we do by considering the environment in which people live. We need to understand the barriers, the strengths, the advantages, opportunities that are there from an environmental perspective to make sure that people can engage again in these very meaningful and very important occupations. So we need to understand all these different components of a person, of a human being, to be able to do our work as an occupational therapist. Who do we work with? Well, we can work with anyone across the lifespan. We work with people of all ages. There will be occupational therapists to work with very, very young children and look at their development. And there will be occupational therapists to work all the way across the lifespan to much older adults as well, and everything that's in between. One of the great things about occupational therapy is the breadth of our work. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky when you want to have a very clear explanation of what occupational therapy is, perhaps. But the advantage is that we can work in an immense variety of settings with people that are living through different circumstances, face different challenges, illnesses, trauma, diseases, developmental delays, and across the lifespan, people of all ages. Where do we work? Well, because our profession and our discipline is so broad, we can work in a lot of different settings and a lot of different areas as well. You have a few examples here. So we can work in hospitals, in outpatient services. We can work within the community, in different community resources where our clients live, which is quite interesting. We can work in schools, we can work in different government departments. OTs now work also even increasingly have their own businesses or private practice. You might have heard about NDIS, and this is an area where there is significant growth in occupational therapy and employment of occupational therapists. The TAC, the Transport Accident Commission, WorkCover are also other places where occupational therapists can work. And you can do like me and like my colleagues who will join us in the Q&A session and work in education and research. I will take you now through the course structure and we'll talk a little bit about the requirements. So this slide and the next slide that will follow are really about the structure of the Bachelor of Occupational Therapy. This starts with the first and the second year. So you have and the figure here, the table shows you what you will go through in your throughout your degree. So you start in trimester 1 with different units. We call them units. So you have these different units, and you will see that they're color coded. So the sort of teal color coded are units that are core to our degree. So you have to successfully complete those units. There are some grey little squares, boxes, which are electives, which means that you can choose whatever you want. Whatever interests you, you can choose to do these units in those specific places across your degree. And then you have the hot pink boxes, which are an identification of placement or practice education or really hands-on practical occupational therapy experiences. So you see here that right from trimester 1 in your first year, you will already have a practice education or placement experience. You will have another one in trimester 2. You will have another one in trimester 1 of your second year and trimester 2 of your second year as well. You have also some electives that you can see in first year. So in year 1, trimester 2, there is a box here where you have the opportunity to choose an elective from different units. One of the things that we have done at Deakin from an occupational therapy perspective, and that is supported throughout the whole university, is that we are really working hard to embed meaningful and authentic Aboriginal content, Indigenous content, to address Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health. For us as OTs, it is really important. It is also part of the standards that we have to meet for our course to be accredited by the Occupational Therapy Council of Australia and the World Federation of Occupational Therapy. So our hope is that from 2023, so next year, when you start your degree, Introduction to Aboriginal Studies will become a core unit. It will no longer be a grey box, but it will have that teal colour, because for us, it's something that is really important. And we believe that having that unit in your first year is going to create really good foundation to which we're going to be able to add as we progress throughout your degree. Whilst you might lose an elective in first year, you certainly maintain your other electives in second year. So again, you can choose from whatever you like. And you have your occupational therapy units. So in the first year, you have Foundations of Occupational Science and Therapy A and B. So you have your core OT specific units and other ones that are more broadly looking at health. Then from second year onwards, you have much more occupational therapy content. And you will see that throughout our third and fourth year as well. So this slide here is year 3 and year 4 of your bachelor degree. So in third year, again, occupational therapy unit, and you have another unit that is about looking at collaborative practice in healthcare, which is the first box that you have in trimester 1 of your third year. For us, working collaboratively and in interdisciplinarity with our colleagues that are part of the healthcare team, but not occupational therapists, is really important. Because in real life, you will work with other healthcare professionals or allied health professionals. So it's important for us to provide you with a really rich and solid experience of multidisciplinarity and working collaboratively with others as well. And then you can see that the hot pink, again, more placement or practice education experiences for you as well in trimester 1 and trimester 2 of your third year and of your fourth year as well. The bottom of this page of this slide has fourth year where you have the pass stream, or fourth year where you have the honours stream. The honours stream is a research year that you will do. It's an opportunity for you to lead your own research, something that you're interested in, that you're curious about, and that you want to know more about and advance and create new knowledge about that specific topic. So it gives you this opportunity to innovate, to contribute to, and to influence occupational therapy knowledge and practice, education and research. So you will be doing that in your fourth year. It is a competitive entry to our honours program. And there are some units that are common to the pass stream and to the honours stream. For example, you will see that the work that we do around assistive technology, we feel it's really important for all our students, honours and pass stream, to really have that knowledge. So there are units that are common to both streams. Placement, common to both streams as well. In your last trimester of your degree, you will see that placement is a little bit different. For students who are enrolled in the pass stream, you have professional practice education B. And then for your honours students, if you become an honours student, you will have placement hours that are embedded in your research project as well. So some of the course entry requirements here. So importantly, and I suppose I should have said that earlier, occupational therapy at Deakin is an undergrad degree, so it's a bachelor degree. It lasts 4 years, and we are located, our home campus is at Geelong Waterfront campus. In saying this, we're all very acutely aware that the past 2 years have been quite different in the way that we've been teaching and the way that we've been learning as well. We have certainly learned from the online teaching that we've been doing that there are some advantages. So we are currently offering a little bit of a blended model or blended learning approach, but definitely a lot of our content, the hands-on content, the occupational therapy content is delivered and offered on campus in Geelong at the Waterfront campus. You have a list of prerequisites here for school leavers, for non-school leavers, with different things. So school leavers, you need to have VCE units 3 and 4. You need to look at the study score for English, either 30 or 25, depending. And then if you're a non-school leaver, there's a different pathway for entry. So we look at different things, basically. We look at your senior secondary certificate of education with an ATAR. We look at the ATAR. We look at Cert 4. We look at diploma. We look at different things that you've accomplished and that you've done that will become sort of an equivalent for us to figure out if you have met those requirements and prerequisites. If you are joining us today as potentially an international student and you would like to learn a little bit more about how to apply to Deakin, you want to know about fees and scholarships and study at Deakin, you may wish to attend one of the information run by our international study experts. They will have the capacity and the knowledge to answer the question that you might have as well. And you can also speak to our international team on web chat, which you can find by clicking on the icon on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So again, there are some entry requirements for international students. In terms of the English requirement is actually quite important for us, and that's a requirement for from our accrediting body. So we need students need to have, in terms of English requirement, a score of 7. And you have other academic requirements as well that you can see here. And don't hesitate to get in touch with the international team. International admission requirement can be found on the link that you have here. But there's an entire team that are amazing and can help you navigate through the different questions that you might have and support you throughout your application at Deakin. Whilst you'll be studying, you've seen the course structure and everything that you're going to learn. There's also a life outside of that, and a life of a student experience and a life experience at Deakin. And you have on this slide a few examples of the opportunities that you have. So you have different students associations. There is the Deakin University Student Association, or the DUSA. But in OT, we have our own association as well, the Deakin Occupational Therapy Student Association, which is led by your peers, led by OT students. There's a mentor program. There's I kept on the slide international study tour and exchange opportunities. We know that the past 2 years have completely cancelled our opportunity to travel internationally. Fingers crossed, things are going to reopen, and we're going to keep sending students overseas and hosting students from overseas as well. We have really good partnerships with India, with Denmark, with different countries in Europe and in Asia as well as India. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that we can start the study tour and exchanges sooner rather than later. You will also have the opportunity to become an OTA, or Occupational Therapy Australia student member, and there's a lot of other different social, cultural and more sport-related experiences for you. So now, let's talk about the exciting stuff. The 7 reasons why you really want to study occupational therapy at Deakin. Reason 1, student satisfaction. For the last 12 years, we have had the highest level of student satisfaction amongst Victoria University, 12 years in a row. That's why you want to come to study at Deakin. The second reason is the state-of-the-art facilities that we have in occupational therapy. We have been able to refurbish, redesign, configure, and redevelop our entire teaching space. So we now have world-class simulated learning spaces that are using groundbreaking assistive and smart technologies. And you have a few photos here. But it's really important for us to have that space that is really state of to enable all of our students like yourself, if you choose to, or when you choose to come to Deakin, to really have this opportunity to try the different assistive and smart technology and have that simulated environment to really consolidate your learning. So when you go on placement, you will have been exposed to a variety of environments as well. Another reason why you want to study OT at Deakin is our award-winning online learning resource. So at Deakin, we have been pioneers in simulated education and simulated placement. We have created a creative, cutting-edge and award-winning online resource. And that resource includes a lot of different case studies and content that our students are using throughout their degree to really get that sense of a better understanding of the lived experience of being an occupational therapist and the lived experience of living with a disability or being someone who would benefit from occupational therapy services and interventions. And I have to say that I, along with my colleagues, are very proud of this, because not only have we won national awards for the quality of this resource, but a lot of other occupational therapy courses in other universities are buying a license to access our online learning resources because of its quality and its innovative characteristics and cutting edge characteristics as well. So if you come to study at Deakin, you will have access to all of that. Another reason why you want to study at Deakin, a really strong one, is the real world experience. You will have placement right from trimester 1 of your first year. You will have 8 different placement opportunities throughout your degree. And you will have other hands-on experiences that are embedded in some of your core units as well. You will have also this opportunity to contribute to occupational therapy through research and placement as well. But it means that your real world experience exceeds the minimum requirement that has been determined by the World Federation of Occupational Therapy of 1,000 hours. At Deakin, when you come to do OT at Deakin, you will have more than the 1,000 hours, which is the minimum requirement. Having more than that gives you more experience, more chances of practicing and consolidating your skills and your competence, and makes you even more ready when you leave to start your career as an occupational therapist. Number 5, experienced academic staff. We are a team, we are an amazing team. We're a team of occupational therapists and allied health professionals. All of us have, on top of our education, all of us have completed higher education by degree research, and part of our research, but all of us have completed education certificate in higher education to learn how to teach in a higher education environment. We all learn how to be occupational therapists or allied health clinicians, and then we feel that we needed to learn how to teach properly. So you have experts in teaching and learning, you have experts in our discipline of occupational therapy and being allied health professionals, and you also have experts in research in different areas of practice and in different areas of research. This means that you have people that have expertise in play therapy, in working with children, in mental health, eating disorders, universal design, aged care, hand therapy. I've talked about universal design. I'm sure that I'm forgetting different areas of expertise, but you will have that experience and varied academic staff that are there for you. Another reason why you want to study at Deakin is results that we get from what we call the Student Experience Survey. So this is a survey that is sent to all occupational therapy students and all higher education students, but we're more interested in OT now. All occupational therapy students, current and the ones who graduated, are sent that survey every year. And it's about giving us information about your overall experience as a student. And for our current students, the Bachelor of Occupational Therapy at Deakin scored above the national average in the overall quality of the educational experience, in our teaching practices, our learning resources and facilities, and the support services are available for our current students. When we look at our graduated students, the students who completed their degree at Deakin and are now working, Deakin, again, Bachelor of OT scored above the national average in the overall satisfaction, in the level of skill improvement, and the teaching practices as well. All of these are reasons why you want to come to Deakin. Last but certainly not least, the seventh reason why you want to study occupational therapy at Deakin is the graduate outcomes and employment results and information that we have. We know that 92.3% of our graduates were satisfied overall with their course. So it's a very high level percentage of satisfaction. We know that occupational therapy is a profession that is growing, and you have that growth forecast that is going to increase by 7.4%. I feel like saying it's really hard to find occupational therapists because we need so many. So perspective in terms of employment are fantastic. But what I really like here is the last bit of that slide on the right-hand side, where 95.5% of Deakin graduates, OT graduates, have found employment within 4 months, within the 4 months following completion of their degree. The leftover students who have not found employment, who were not employed, have said that it's because they decided to either take a break from studying, some decided to start a family, and the others decided to do higher degree research, either a master's or a PhD. So the 95, it's almost 96% of our Deakin OT graduates who find employment within 4 months of graduation. I think this in itself is a wonderful reason to come and study at Deakin University and do OT with us. In conclusion, we are very, very proud of our degree. We're proud of our students, we're proud of our team, and we're proud of our partners, the partners that we have that provide us with these amazing placement or practice education opportunities. You will graduate job ready because you will have completed more than the 1,000 hours, which is the minimum. You will have these extra experiences to make you even more ready to enter the workforce. We're really proud in the way that we teach occupational therapy and that we train occupational therapists, because we teach you how to become critical thinkers, lifelong learners, and driven creative problem solvers and innovators. This means that whilst you're learning the different content and whilst you're completing your degree at times, we might not give you the answers right away. And I know that for some students, it can be really annoying because they'd like to have the answer. We're there to help you figure out answers together, and we're there to give you answers as well. But for us, it's really important to shift a little bit the way that we teach to make sure that you can become critical thinkers, that once you leave Deakin, you will have everything that you need to problem solve in a way that is innovative, that is relevant, that is rich, and that is client-centered on your own. And that's what we pride ourselves in terms of teaching. You will learn to work collaboratively with others, and you will be sought after in the industry. Thank you very much for joining us. Please stay and join the live Q&A session, which is just going to start really soon. I'm running out of time. Explore the resources on this page and across the virtual day, the virtual open day website. Talk to our expert on the web chat, and we have Open Day in August. It's back. We're going to be on campus in August. Thank you very much again for your time, and looking forward to seeing you next year. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Occupational Therapy Live Q&A session. My name is Genevieve. I'm an occupational therapist, first and foremost, and I'm also the discipline lead of occupational therapy here at Deakin. And I'm very happy to have a few people with me today. Valerie Watchhorn is here, Pierce Fay is here as well, and both Pierce and Valerie teach into the Bachelor of OT and the Bachelor of OT Honours. And great to have Michaela Humphreys with us, and Michaela is a fourth-year student. And Michaela, I think it's fair to say that you've had a very diverse learning experience over the past 4 years, so it's great to have you here today as well. So we're here to answer your questions, so please go ahead, type away in the Q&A section of the question panel. We'll do our best to answer hopefully all of your questions. If we don't have time to do that in the period of time that we're together, that's fine. There's a web chat, and you have the web chat icon in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And behind the screens, there's a whole team of experts that is there to answer your questions. So we'll start right away with questions here that we have. So I'll be looking at my screen to make sure that I don't forget any questions. We might start with a question here that was sent to us. What does the occupational therapist do as part of their role? So I thought I'd start with you, perhaps, Michaela, because you're on placement right now. So perhaps you can start answering that question.
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm just finishing up my final placement, a 9-week placement, a clinical placement at Bairnsdale Regional Hospital. So that's a really hands-on role, working with inpatients and in the community for acute illnesses, or maybe a lot of aged care, some of the challenges associated with aging, such as accessing their homes or accessing the community and engaging in those activities they want to do. But from my placement experience, OT is very, very diverse.
Great. Thanks for that, Michaela. It is very diverse, and it's great that we have a variety of experience or clinical experiences today. So perhaps I'll ask, I'll go on my screen. So perhaps I'll start with you, Piers, if you want to talk about your role as an occupational therapist, and then we'll go to Val after that.
Thanks, Genevieve. Yes, indeed, very diverse. And even in this role, as we speak here today, we're lecturers that are occupational therapists. So indeed, there's a pathway into the education field that if that is something that takes your interest potentially a little bit later in your career, you can actually enter tertiary education. Myself, I've worked in acute hospitals, subacute hospitals, rehab facilities, community practices, and fortunate enough even to travel over to the UK and work overseas. So quite a variety of aspects or roles that I've fulfilled. One of the main areas of interest that I've worked in is hand therapy. So working on rehabilitation of people who have had upper limb injuries, be it traumatic or chronic injuries. And also looking at in terms of physical health conditions. So that might be people who've had hip replacements or had some type of trauma or illness to a physical aspect. So yes, predominantly that's the areas that I've worked in.
Thanks for that, Piers. And Val?
Yeah, thanks, Genevieve, and hi, everybody. I too am an occupational therapist, and wherever you are working as an occupational therapist, the purpose of your role is to try and actually assist people to do the meaningful activities in their daily life. And you'll hear that as a common thread through the stories that we're sharing here. My areas of clinical background, I've worked as an occupational therapist primarily in community settings. So most of my roles over the years actually involved visiting people in their homes and actually looking at, well, how are people managing their daily activities? Perhaps working with older people, as Michaela referred to, and also people who are living with disabilities. So a lot of children through adolescents and adults, and looking at, well, how can we actually perhaps work with this person, maybe in the form of maybe recommending some assistive technology like wheelchairs or bathroom equipment, or maybe even modifying people's homes to make those homes more accessible and to make it easier for people to live and to do what they want to do in their own homes. And school is another place that I've worked over the years as well.
Thanks for that, Val. I'll answer that question very quickly as well, because I have a clinical experience that is very different to Piers's and Val's. So I've always worked in mental health, and I have to say that when I was studying my degree, that is not an area that I was interested in. And then I had a couple of placements in mental health, and that changed my views of occupational therapy and mental health completely. So I've always worked in mental health. I teach mental health in the course. And like Val, you were saying, what's important from my perspective being an occupational therapist working in mental health is making sure that the people I work with, whether it's the person with the mental illness or their family, are able to engage in occupations, because that's what we talk about all the time in OT. So make sure that they're able to engage in occupations that are meaningful to them, despite the symptoms related to their mental illness or the impact that their mental illness has on their ability to function and engage in things that they love doing. So you see a bit of the variety within the team, and that's going to be the variety that you're going to benefit from when you start your studies at Deakin Uni. There's another really interesting question that we have here. Are there work placements or internship included in the course? Yes, there are. I'll sort of give a bit of an overview of that in terms of answer to that question, and then I'll again go to everybody, because Michaela you already talked about your placement, and Piers and Val are involved in placement or practice education, as we call it, but in very different ways. So it sort of highlights the diversity of what we offer in terms of practice education. So yes, you will be doing placements. The occupational therapy course at Deakin is accredited by the World Federation of Occupational Therapists. And that means that we have to meet very specific standards. And one of those standards is to make sure that we offer a minimum of 1,000 hours of placement across the 4 year of the degree. So at Deakin, you're going to have a bit more than the 1,000 hours. We're quite happy about that. And you're going to start placement right from the first trimester of your first year, and you're going to have placement or placement related learning across the whole course every single trimester over the 4 years of the degree. So perhaps, Michaela, we'll start with you if you want to tell us a little bit about your placement, then I'll go to Piers, and then I'll go to Val after that.
Yeah, thanks, Genevieve. So one of the highlights, I guess, of Deakin's practice education program is the diversity and the opportunity for different experience. So from first year, we were out in the field, and it was a bit of a taste tester to see if it was something you were interested in or not. In first year, I got to go to a rehab setting in Melbourne, and that really opened my eyes and think, oh, this is something I could enjoy. Since then, I've been able to travel to Sydney for placement at a children's camp for children with autism, and that was amazing, a really nice paediatric opportunity. I'm now in a regional setting. I've had a chance in mental health at Headspace. In primary schools, we got paired up and got to go into the schools and do some short-term intervention. But talking to my peers, it is truly so diverse. One of my peers got to go into one of the prisons to do some mental health OT. So that's something I had no clue we could be going. So yeah.
Thanks for that, Michaela. I might go to you, Piers, because you're involved in placement in second year. So we're sort of going to go chronologically and then finish with you, Val, to talk about the third year placement, if that's all right, or add anything else about other placements as well.
Excellent. Yes. So part of the second year cohort of our Deakin students is that we offer a placement that's actually a simulated placement. And with that opportunity, it's giving students who have got a little bit more skill, obviously, than have developed skills from first year to actually give things a go in a safe environment. So the simulated placement actually allows you to participate in placement rather than observe. We run that across both the first trimester and the second trimester, and therefore that gives you a chance to see how well you have developed over the year as well. So it's a really nice setup in the sense and structure in the sense to let you have a go at being an OT very early in the course rather than observing at that point in time. We again structure it in the sense that it's done at the end of the trimester, so you've got a chance to learn the content and learn the knowledge and skill, and then put it into practice. And we think at Deakin that's one of our strengths, is that we're teaching you things here within the university, and then as Genevieve mentioned, that we've got placement threaded throughout, that you actually go ahead and put it into practice rather than just thinking about it. So the second year placements are 2 simulated placements that everyone gets an opportunity to be an OT very early on in the course.
Piers, can I just ask you quickly to talk about the simulated placement and how they change and you were able to adapt to the COVID
Most definitely,
context that we lived in?
Yeah, so we've integrated the simulated placement for 5 to 6 years now, and yes, obviously over the past 2 years, things did change, but we're able to think rapidly enough and change things. And again, a quality of Deakin is the ability to be flexible. Is that we continued on with the placement, therefore we're not delaying students, and we transferred it to a telehealth placement. And as you might have experienced in yourselves, that telehealth has become quite a big area of practice. So now we have that integrated into our course. So looking for silver linings in the past 2 years, that we're able to now build a telehealth placement into our course that we will continue on with, and we won't cease it at this point. We'll continue on with. So you have the skills of doing in person, and then you will have the skills of doing in a telehealth environment.
Thanks for that, Pierce. We like silver linings.
We do. We always hunt for them.
Thanks for that. Val, can you tell us a bit more about the third year placement?
Yeah, absolutely, Genevieve. So in third year, in the first trimester of third year, we have a 2-week placement that either occurs in a 2-week block or else actually 1 or 2 days a week. So different structures are available, and that's offsite in a clinical environment in any of the many and varied settings in which occupational therapists work across Victoria, and even actually sometimes interstate as well. So we do have partners that offer student placement in Tasmania, Northern Territory, New South Wales, as Michaela referred to as well, but more commonly, not surprisingly, in Victoria. That's our third year first trimester placement, and then in our second trimester, as Michaela referred to, we have another placement which is called our community-based practice education placement, and that's actually where students do an 8-week full-time placement in pairs, and actually in a school environment, in a mainstream school environment, and also in a community setting. And so that's actually a very peer-driven placement where students are really learning how to actually self-direct themselves on placement and have this with the support of an occupational therapist from Deakin University, but really a great opportunity to actually build up students' confidence and skills by, in some ways, sort of standing on their own 2 feet a little bit more on a daily basis in those work environments, and still reaching out and being well supported by the Deakin Occupational Therapy team as well. And then into fourth year, as Michaela referred to, which is that full-time 9-week placement.
On just a bit more on the placement that you were talking about just now, Val, in third year, the community-based placement, we know from past experience that specifically this placement has often led to employment for a lot of our students who ended up having a career as pediatric OTs or working in school with children. So we know that format of placement, which is different and quite unique to Deakin, works really well because it really has led to employment for quite a few of our students. There's also another placement in fourth year, which is a bit of a project placement that we decided to add to the offers of placement hours that we already had in our degree. And we decided to offer that because fourth year students were telling us that they felt quite nervous leaving the university, leaving education. Like sometimes you go through, primary, secondary, and then you go to uni and now it's finished and you have to work. And a lot of the students were saying, I don't know if I'm ready for that. We knew that they were. But still, we decided to work with students and really take on board the feedback, and we developed that project placement where students start working on, very often it's going to be a clinical question that is given to us by our different partners, start thinking about how that would work, and then it becomes the project placement in the second part or the last half of the fourth year of the degree. And again, that specific placement also has led to employment for quite a few of our students. So that's what our placement offering looks like a bit. Again, on placement, and it's great to see that there's so many questions on placement. There was a question here from Caitlin. Are placement just located in Geelong, and who are some of Deakin Placement's partners? That would take the whole afternoon, I think, to give you the whole list, but quick answer is no. And Michaela, Pierce and Val, just jump in as well. Quick answer is no, it's not just in Geelong. I was going to say by definition, but because of our accreditation with the World Federation of OT and the standards that come with that, we have to make sure that all our students have at least one placement in a regional setting. So you're going to have to move a little bit away from Geelong. We have some placement, I was going to say traditional placement, but I think that's wrong now. Traditional placement are no longer in hospital. That's where we're sort of going. It shows my age. Back in the day, traditional placement were more in hospital, but we're moving away from that as OTs work increasingly in the community. But definitely we have partnerships with Barwon Health, Western Health. We talked about schools before. Different agencies as well. So I don't know, Pierce and Val or Michaela, if you want to add more examples of our partners in terms of placement.
Yeah, I think that, well, you've mentioned a lot, some of the large health organisations, and really, I think we're very grateful that we actually have really positive relationships with pretty much all the healthcare services across Victoria, those large health organisations. And in that regard, there's opportunity to do placement in those large tertiary hospitals through the range of rehabilitation and, as we mentioned, psychiatric, as well as more physical health related services. But increasingly, our placements are being offered also by our more smaller scale private partnerships as well. So as the profession is increasingly moving into community-based, often private practice services, then that's reflecting the nature of our placement partners as well. And increasingly students are doing placement in that sort of range of environments as well.
Pierce, do you want to add examples of placement that we might not have mentioned that you think are important?
Yeah, and further to that, the aspects of which links a little bit to the project role is OT's taking up roles in other forms of OT, in project management and so forth. So there's some larger organisations, the TACs, what covers and so forth, that employ a large amount of OTs in not the clinical practice part of OT, but in other forms of it as well. So there's a real want and from many organisations for some of the core skills that OTs bring to the picture, and that is outside of clinical aspects. It's more project management and running organisations indeed. So we do have the opportunity to build skills early on with some of those placements are clinical, but then also broaden out our view of what OTs can do in the community in some of the large organisations that may not previously have had OTs as well.
Yeah, great point, Pierce. Michaela, just for the benefit of people who might have joined this session a bit late, can you just remind us of the places where you've done your placement so far?
Yeah, so I went to the Royal Talbot Rehabilitation Centre in Kew in Melbourne. I've done the simulated placements. I went to Camp Jabiru with the Sensory Gym in Sydney. I was at one of the local primary schools and Headspace for my CBPE, and now I'm in Bairnsdale Regional Health Service to finish off. And then, yeah, obviously I'm doing my honours, so I will be working in partnership with Western Health.
Great, thanks for that, Michaela. There's also one area, and it sort of links with another question that we had around the career opportunities when you are an occupational therapist, and if it's easy to get employment after you finish your degree. There is the National Disability Insurance Scheme that is now really growing, and a lot of occupational therapists work within the NDIS. I'll just answer part of the question. Is it easy to get into a career once you finish your degree? I would say yes, very confidently yes. We're sort of facing a shortage of occupational therapists at the moment. I know that some of our colleagues who work in mental health or other areas, and I guess I talk about mental health because that's what I know more, and that's what I know more about. It's very difficult to fill in mental health positions, and with the Royal Commission into Mental Health, there's a lot of OT positions that are being created, and it's really difficult to fill in these positions, but I would say it goes much beyond, it goes beyond just mental health. So yes, it's going to be fairly easy to find employment once you finish your degree. And I see Michaela is doing, nodding, agree with that, Michaela.
Yeah, definitely. On most of my more recent placements, people have been saying, come back and work with us. We really need you. And there's definitely that need in the community.
So it's, in a way, I feel like saying it's a good problem to have, I think, when it makes it easy to find employment. I feel like we've talked about the different careers before when we sort of talked about where we're all working as well. And Pierce, you made a point about the fact that we're here and we're OTs and we're academic as well. So perhaps you want to talk about that a bit more, or Val as well?
Yeah. And with that, which Michaela's doing at this point in time, is also adding evidence or research to the practice of OT. So that's something we very much promote within our course, is having students understand the importance of working on evidence that is there, and then indeed helping to develop more evidence. So it's an area that's for some students, they'll love it in the sense of being able to work with other people to go about a project and then even publish their work in journals and so forth. So it's the research side of things, and project management and Align is an area of OT I think there's still quite untapped as well. So plenty of scope to continue on in that area. Our practice of OT is based upon evidence, so we try to keep that up to date and then build upon it. And definitely here at Deakin, it's something we promote strongly, and getting all students involved, either running the research or being participants or what have you. So yes, the research aspect is something that we heavily promote.
Yes. I'm just mindful of time, and I want to make sure that I go through as many questions as possible. Although the discussion is great, I'm just going to go back to my screen and look at the questions. There was one question earlier on from Mel. Can doing a Bachelor of Occupational Therapy lead to pediatric occupational therapist? Yes. Short answer. Yes, you can definitely. When you finish your degree, you can work in any area of occupational therapy. So, you know, I've worked in mental health. We have different examples here with Val and Pierce in different areas. You can definitely, when you finish your degree, work as a pediatric occupational therapy. Absolutely.
Can I just quickly jump in there, Genevieve? Also,
sure,
the fact of once you're in your career, you can also move across fields without needing to return to a university degree. You would likely continue on with your professional development and doing potentially short courses or other things like that. But to return to a university course is not required, and you can move across from pediatrics to mental health to hand therapy to community practice, whatever it might be, and still be called an occupational therapist.
That's a very good point, Pierce. And I'd add to that that Occupational Therapy Australia provides really great support if you move from areas of practice as well. So that's a really good point. There was also a question related to that, if I'm just scrolling, talking about the different area of OT, and are there specialization in rehabilitation or physical injury or illness? So yes, that you can work in very physical rehab, physical health, or mental health, or everything in between, I would say. So yes, you can actually do that. I wouldn't call that a specialization, but like I was saying before, when you finish your degree, your occupational therapy degree at Deakin, you will have everything that you need to work in these very different areas of occupational therapy practice. Once you finish and you are an occupational therapist, then through Occupational Therapy Australia or different professional organizations, then you can increase your knowledge and your skills and have more advanced knowledge. I'm thinking about hand therapy, Pierce. So there's extra content or extra learning that you can do after you finish your degree. But certainly when you finish, you can work PEDS, mental health, physical rehabilitation, all these different areas, I think would be fair to say. Scrolling away on my screen, there was a question around, and I can't find it anymore, but it was really interesting in terms of a flexible way of learning, flexible study options. So yes, we can be flexible and accommodate for people's needs and circumstances, because life happens. So you can do your degree full time, the full 4 years, one after the other. You can go part time. You can have a different course plan, and there's a whole team that is going to work with you to make sure that it's a course plan that works for you and takes into consideration your circumstances. And it's all done in collaboration with you and the rest of the team as well. So yes, there are some flexibility in there as well. Scrolling, I'm going up and down, just trying to figure out. There was another question about the VCE subjects, and I can't find it, but I know that we talked about it before. So whilst I'm scrolling, perhaps Val or Pierce, you could answer that question around VCE subjects.
Yeah, absolutely, Genevieve. So English is the is what we're looking for in terms of having successfully completed English within the VCE. Beyond that, we're not particularly prescriptive in terms of what you need to have completed. I guess some relevant subjects, if people are interested in health, then coming into a health-related course, subjects such as biology or psychology or human development, health-related units will probably give you some strengths of understanding in which to come into then those first-year university units around anatomy and physiology and psychology, etc. But they're not essential. So students will come in from having studied a VCE that may or may not include those that sort of background. But if you're early enough in your career and you're thinking about occupational therapy, then I encourage you, I guess, to look at those health-related units. They might just give you a stronger foundation of knowledge, but it's not essential.
Thanks for that, Val. I found a great question from Caitlin to you, Michaela. Michaela, how would you describe your time studying OT at Deakin? Do you have any highlights?
Ooh.
We want to hear your answer too.
No, I honestly have loved studying at Deakin, and that's not just because I'm sitting here today. Obviously, I've really enjoyed it. It was a big move for me. I moved away from my small regional town, so about 4 hours away, and I just love the atmosphere and the environment that Deakin provides. It's a very friendly university in that you're very connected with your peers. There's a lot of opportunity for group work and collaboration. And then the lecturers are more than supportive, and that's been particularly evident during COVID. Often with the switch online, things got a little bit more complicated in that you couldn't ask questions directly while you're sitting there in class. But yeah, everyone was more than helpful and more than accommodating. Highlights, I don't know if I have a single highlight, but definitely getting back on campus for this year in particular. It's been a really nice way to round up and finish with all my peers. I would say the highlight personally for me is probably third year. That's when it all just clicked. And that's when I felt like I actually know what I'm doing and I could go out and make a difference. So, yeah.
Great answer, Michaela. There was another question, and I see that we're almost running out of time, so that might be the last question that we have time to answer. Is occupational therapy a physically demanding job? I've worked in mental health, so I would say for me it was not physically demanding, but Pierce and Val and Michaela as well, you have different experiences, so you probably would have a very different answer to mine. So
yes, quite a variety of roles. So in some it is quite physical, and being in someone's home and actually bringing in equipment and assisting them with transfers and practicing transfers, all the way through to manufacturing or making a physical cast or splint that we do. So there is definitely a physical element to it, but that's some roles. As mentioned, then there's other roles that are less so.
Yeah. Michaela or Val, did you want to add anything about the physical demand of being an occupational therapist?
Yeah, I guess in a way I could compare it so people understand. There's a lot more sitting down than nursing. There's a lot more opportunity to sit down and build a therapeutic relationship with your clients when you're doing some interviewing, but then there's definitely opportunity to be up and about and doing some really hands-on tasks, which I guess is where that physical aspect would come in. So I think it's a good variety and a good medium of opportunity.
And I think just to add to that, I think that it is what you would like it to be honest, that there is such a breadth of career opportunities that depending on what your interest and your abilities and what will match you, I reckon, you know, it's out there for the taking, that the career choices are so vast and ever growing at the moment. There's a real variety to choose from.
There are two other questions that are really, really good. So I'm going to go with these two questions. First one is really quick to answer. Is the course accredited? Yes, we are accredited by the World Federation of Occupational Therapists. And we just renewed our accreditation this year for another 5 years, which we're quite happy about. The other question, which is, I think, fantastic. What makes OT at Deakin unique?
I feel like I could talk about that for half an hour. I'll just be really brief in that, and then pass it around, perhaps Michaela, starting with you, and then Pierce and Val. I'm not from Australia. I came here from Canada, and already when I was working in Canada as an OT, as an academic at Laval University in Quebec City, already we knew about Deakin, and we already knew about the Deakin course. We knew about the fact that Deakin was different in the way that it was, and Pierce, you mentioned that a little bit, how flexible it is in terms of learning, and the placement structure was well known before I moved here, and I've been here for like 15 years, I think. We knew already about the flexibility of the course. We knew already about the very unique placement structure and how it was different. We knew about the different options in terms of location of placement and having that variety in terms of the practice education. We also knew about the quality of the team and the diversity of the team in terms of experience, and that's certainly things that we kept. The diversity in our teaching staff, the diversity in the placement, all of that was already very well established even 15 years ago in Canada. We knew about all of that. Perhaps I'll start with you, Michaela, and then I'll go around in my screen. Michaela and Pierce, and then Val, your view of what makes Deakin OT unique.
Yeah, I think that the atmosphere that Deakin creates is just unique in itself from talking to my peers at other universities. One of the major highlights for me would be, it comes down to assignments and assessments. Deakin's assignments and assessments are really practical, and you can see the immediate relation to what it will be like in your work. So rather than, obviously we do some essays and things to develop our theory early on, but we do kind of a transition where the assignments become really practical, and one of them, you might be interviewing a client to practice an assessment or to practice your information gathering. And then another one, you might be completing an initial assessment or a standardized assessment. You might be prescribing some assistive technology to someone. So there's a clear link with how it relates to your practice. And I have found that on my placement now, there's nothing that has been said that I was like, I've never heard of this before. So that's really comforting as well.
That's good to hear. Thanks for that, Michaela. Pierce, what do you think makes the OT at Deakin unique?
It's one aspect is a time frame. That's what we are still a 4-year course, and we do know that other courses have been reduced to a shorter length of time. But the 4-year course, obviously a longer amount of time, but it also provides time for people to learn OT. So it's not rushing everything to make it squeeze into a short amount of time. It actually gives the student time to really consolidate their knowledge after learning it in the first couple of years, and then build upon it to be competent and confident when they leave, rather than potentially not. So our course remains as a 4-year course, and something we pride ourselves on in terms of we get a lot of our core OTs taught from first year all the way through to 4th year. And with that, we do have a reputation of having graduates like Michaela will soon be, who are out there straight away doing the job that they're needed to for our community. So the length of the course and teaching OT from day one.
Before I move on to you, Val, I just want to add quickly on what you were saying, Pierce, the fact that it's a 4-year degree. What I've heard, and probably you as well, what I've heard from employers is that they want to have Deakin grads because of the 4-year degree, because they feel that you as a new grad will be ready to start working immediately, and you don't have a lag or period of time where you need to have perhaps more support. You still get the support and the supervision from your employer, obviously, but employers are saying we want Deakin grads because they are work ready and can start working immediately. Val, what makes Deakin OT unique?
Oh, I think all of what others have mentioned. I think the other point that hasn't been mentioned yet, but I think is a real highlight and strength of our course, is the integration of placement from trimester 1, week 1. And I think that student feedback is that having that hands-on opportunity to practice developing clinical skills, confidence in oneself, professional identity of being an occupational therapist and understanding what that role is. A lot of people come into the course a little bit unclear about what occupational therapy is and what occupational therapists do. And that's a strong emphasis of learning from trimester 1. And we really do integrate opportunity for students to actually go out into clinical settings, industry settings, and have occupational therapists who are working in clinical practice speaking to our first year students, as well as them learning manual handling and interviewing skills right from day 1. And having that placement integrated across the 4 years, I think, is one of the points that makes us unique and a real strength of our course.
Great. Thank you for that. I think it was a wonderful question to end this live Q&A session. So we have run out of time. Thank you for having stayed with us for a little bit longer, but I think the questions were amazing. So it's great to see that so many people attended this session. Wonderful questions. If we didn't answer your questions, don't worry, there is still the web chat that you can just click on the icon, and there's people that are going to be there until at least 4:30 to answer some of your questions. There's also a lot of information and resources on the Deakin Open Day website, so we encourage you to have a look at what's in there. Thanks to Michaela for sharing your experience, Pierce and Val and everybody else behind the scenes. And we can't wait to see you all face to face at Deakin next year to start your OT degree. Thanks, everyone.